Welcome to Khealos' Gaming Table. I'm Khealos, and on this channel I talk about tabletop RPGs, miniature war games, and because I can't help myself, I'm on my actual final rambling walk in Orlando. I fly out. Technically my flight leaves at about 12:30. I want to get to the airport quite a few hours before that, and there's a statue that I want to find at the Orlando airport. Apparently it's in Terminal A in the art area. It looks like a very realistic sleeper. Plus I want to get some more pictures. You know, it's the one thing that I really haven't done since I've got to Orlando. I have gone and seen quite a few things, but I really haven't gotten a whole lot of pictures, mostly because I took so many, the last few times, and I haven't seen too much new. But, yeah, I'd like to get some pictures of the airport. I've got a better idea of what to expect. I'm getting there fairly early, so I'm hoping TSA isn't all that bad, but it is a Saturday, and you never can tell. Yeah. Orlando has been, a fun trip. I've mentioned that. The most fun I've had are doing these rambling walks. And I'm certainly looking forward to getting home for a variety of reasons. I miss my wife and partner. I miss my fur babies. I know they miss me. My wife has told me that she's, put some of my videos on in the background, just to help get some stuff, to watch and critique and, just see what kind of dumb shit I talk about. And, as soon as I start talking, dog ears start whipping up. And heads, look around. Where's Daddy? Where's Daddy? Some of them, and they just, I guess, don't quite, get, that I'm on TV, or they look at me and they just don't see me because, I'm an image on the television, not a, person. I don't know. Dogs are weird. At the same time, my wife found Squirrel TV on YouTube, where people set up some cameras at ground level, throw out some food, and just record as squirrels and various other creatures come out and eat it. And the first time, the girls saw that, they were like, "Oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever." And Grolka kept trying to look behind the television, trying to see where the squirrels go, especially when they run off a camera. But the thing is, when you're watching something like that on, a relatively big screen TV, the squirrels get big. They're not, squirrel size. They're image-wise, they look almost as big as the girls do. So that, that's pretty funny. I know people do stuff like that for their cats. We sometimes do that for the birds. And for a little while, Grook was like very demanding, like, "Mommy, I want to watch Squirrel TV." But, I guess she watched it enough or realized that there's nothing there for her to interact with. Nothing to chase, nothing to bark at, whatever the case is. So she just kind of got bored and stopped watching. But just shows that, even dogs can be easily amused by what you find on television. Well, watched BattleBots last night. Talked about it. It was far better than last week's episode, and there was only one fight that was kind of meh, and the rest were pretty solid. And I'm really looking forward to next week's, the Golden Bolt finale, where the winners of the last, I think, 5 weeks will go up against, go head to head, and also go up against the last 3 Golden Nut winners. Giant Nut winners, excuse me. It's the big prize for the main BattleBots scene, and we're gonna see just how well those winners do, because if you've made it that far, you've got a nasty, deadly bot, and carnage, I'm sure, will ensue, but that'll be conversation for next week. It is a brisk Saturday morning here. It is probably 65 degrees. And because I didn't expect needing it, I didn't bring a hoodie. Not that, it's like cold. If it was too bad, I really wouldn't be doing this. But I want to get one last walk in. Got my suitcase all packed, ready to go. I just need to pack up the rest of my laptop. get my Kindle, make sure it's charged, go through every drawer, go through every nook and cranny, make sure I get all my stuff, like my shaving gear, and I want to make sure that I leave the room as clean as possible. And I've got a bit of garbage that I got to haul out, but that's life in a hotel room. Ugh. Time is a funny thing because you sometimes don't realize its passage until you look back and think, I got here and I thought, oh great, 3 weeks in Orlando, 3 weeks away from my house, my wife, my dogs, my stuff, and what am I going to do? Work helped fill a lot of that time. I had a lot of really busy days, and I had to come in, work overnight. Had a couple of days that I had to work really late due to some issues that we wanted to get fixed before the client arrived to inspect the site. And then, other than that, I look back and think, wow, 3 weeks. 3 weeks are now in the rear view mirror of, my life. I did get out and drive a bit. I went to the local game store. Well, local-ish. It was about a 25-minute drive. But surprisingly, the only other game store that I found relatively close to where the hotel is, it has more of like a collectible card game, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, that kind of thing. Not what I would consider, a game store. And I did, check out one of the larger Barnes & Nobles here. And, it is great to see, a good selection of Battletech there, because they had they had all three of the main box sets, such as, Game of Armor Combat, Clan Invasion, and then also the new starter box set. They also had some of the Barnes & Noble exclusives, like the Irondale Light Horse and the the newest one that came out. But the game store that I went to, the Collective, which is a bit north, fantastic game store. If you happen to be in Orlando, check out the Collective. It's got comic books. It's got a fantastic selection of role-playing games, not just Dungeons and Dragons. It has just about everything and several things I hadn't seen. Surprisingly, the Games Workshop section of the store wasn't as big as a lot of other stores that I've seen. You always, hear the stories about, when a store opens up or decides to carry GW stuff, they have to dedicate X number of square footage to that product and, have a ton of it on the shelves. Otherwise, they don't get favorable pricing or whatever. Now, take that with a grain of salt. That's stuff that I've heard. I've not actually talked with a store manager. I've never wanted to open up a game store, let alone one that caters to GW, but I've heard things like that, and that's one of the reasons that Games Workshop is so prevalent in the marketplace, is because, pick a game store, 10 to 1, it's going to have Games Workshop product, specifically, more than likely, Warhammer 40K, because that is, the elephant in the room. It's been around for decades, and despite some of the trials and tribulations that Games Workshop has gone through, it is still the dominant force in the gaming market. But the good news is there's plenty of other games, and just because it's the biggest game in the market doesn't mean that it's going to drown everything else out. Well, at least not completely. Star Wars is pretty prevalent. I see a lot of displays for that. Actually, it looked like the Star Wars section of the Collective was bigger and more prominent than the Games Workshop one. Never played it. I looked at it. But as much as I love Star Wars, and 20 years ago, 10 years ago, that would have been totally my jam, I do not want to get back into a miniature war game that actually has armies. Like where I've got a bunch of figures that represent like actual individual people on the battlefield. Looks great. If I do something like that, it's going to be skirmish or squad based. No interest in doing a full army. especially with a horde army or anything like that. Did that with the Tyranids. Was a lot of fun to do. Looks great on the table. Giant pain in my ass to actually paint, transport, and then move, especially with the I go, you go. You know, Space Marine player might, be done relatively quickly because they've got a lower model count, and Tyranids definitely not, at least my army, definitely not a low model count force. But yeah, if you're in Orlando, for business, for pleasure, you're a gamer, go ahead and check out the Collective. Great store. Don't have the address on me, but you can certainly find it through the Googles, because that's how I found it. It's a bit of a drive from where my hotel is, but the drive isn't all that bad. And with Google Maps and voice navigation, I didn't get lost. I got there with relative ease. Debating what I want to do for breakfast this morning, because I'm hungry, but I'm not sure if I'm going to just grab a cup of coffee in the lobby and then grab a big lunch at the airport. I might go grab a bite to eat, mostly because I don't know what the TSA line is going to be like, and that is the mother of all lines. That is one of my biggest pet peeves for traveling, especially since I've got to take off my goddamn shoes. And I understand why all of these things were put in place. I remember 9/11. I remember watching the TV as the second plane hit live. And I remember a whole flash of emotions. And then they implemented all of these new checkpoints and all of that. The problem that I have is, based upon a lot of the reports, a lot of the reports that have come out for, smuggling things through the TSA or whatever, if you're dedicated and you have enough skill and enough money, chances are you're going to be able to smuggle that weapon or whatever through. And the actual percentage of contraband items found is extremely low. That's not to take away from the jobs that the men and women at the TSA do. Like a lot of things, it's a pretty thankless job, but at the same time, having to get to the airport 2 hours, recommended to get to the airport 2 hours early at a minimum, just to make sure that you can get through the lines, is, just kind of ridiculous. In the fact that some dipshit tried to take a bomb on the plane, and now I have to take my shoes off to confirm that, I'm not smuggling, some sort of weird explosive onto a plane, is just dumb, considering that's happened once. If the government and people actually took threats seriously, we'd be doing a lot more different things. But I'm going to try and keep the politics out of this, and read into that what you will. But at any rate, yeah, I don't mind flying at all. I actually enjoy flying. I love the build-up. Morning. Love the build-up of, the airplane gathering speed, that tilt back, and that initial stomach jolt as it lifts off, and then rising into the air, looking out, watching everything shrink. Love that, always have. It's the hassle of navigating the airport, especially the Orlando airport, because that thing is freaking huge. It dwarfs Austin Bergstrom. Austin Bergstrom is one complex, as far as I know. There are multiples in the Orlando airport, and you need to get from different terminals, you got to take a tram. That tells you something right now. You really have to plan your trip out. Make sure you get there early. Make sure that you know how to get to your particular terminal, because when I was flying from Austin to Orlando, I had a layover in Dallas. The problem was the flight was delayed for whatever reason, and we had to sit on the tarmac while the lane cleared and we could actually take off. And then there was a delay when we were landing. I think same kind of thing. We had to wait for the plane that was at our terminal to move out of the way, whatever the case was. This was 3 weeks ago. I've slept a time or two since then. But the Dallas airport is freaking huge as well, so I had to get my stuff, or grab my bag, offload, find the tram to get to the area that I needed to. Once I got there, I had to sprint from the tram to the actual terminal, and by the time I got to the terminal, they were already, onboarding. Luckily, I was, far enough down on the list, and I had an assigned seat that I didn't have to worry about it too much. But there's that paranoia, that fear, like, oh crap, I'm fixing to miss this connecting flight. And I've got a couple of people that I can call if something happens. But when they book, such things together, never take into account that airports, while they can be a model of efficiency, shit happens. Flights are delayed, things happen, and you might not make it. But looks like the weather's going to be nice. The last time I flew out of Orlando, there was a beautiful thunderstorm. I mean, a beautiful light show. It was gorgeous. But, my flight got delayed by a couple of hours as they had to reroute traffic. And it was also something I'm potentially dreading. When I flew out the last time, my flight got moved from different terminals to different terminals. And, I could get set down, get caught up in my Kindle, reading something. And then, the announcement comes up, flight such and such to Austin has been moved to gate, XYZ. And like, God damn it. So I got to get up, check all my stuff, make sure I've got everything. Luckily, it's not too bad. I've just got my backpack and my suitcase. And then look at the signs and hoof it to wherever I was next to sit down, only to have it happen again. Traveling sounds fantastic. A great theory. However, the older that I've gotten, and to be honest, even when I was younger, traveling is nice if it's like a day trip in a car with a bunch of people, or at least, a traveling companion to talk to, somebody to, hand you snacks, or if you're the snack hander. But just the hassle of having to go through TSA, just the hassle of having to, get to the airport, get your car, get to the hotel, all of that. I've turned into a hobbit. Definitely prefer staying at home, definitely prefer to be around my stuff, definitely prefer to enjoy, the home-cooked food, don't get me wrong. The company has been great. I'm going to get reimbursed for all of my meals. I've saved all my receipts. I just got to sit down probably Sunday or Monday and go through all of them, document them. But, oh man, eating out is great when you're tired, but after a certain point, I just am ready for some home-cooked food and to not have all of the additives, because when you cook food at home, at least from scratch, you know what's going into it. You know how it's being prepared, what spices, what blends are going into it. You can select the whatever you're going to fry it in or cook it in. You can cook it exactly how you want it, and that's great. Unfortunately, you're kind of at the whim of whoever the cook behind the back in the kitchen is for wherever you're going. I have enjoyed all of the food that I've eaten in Orlando. I've done my best to eat mostly at local places or places that I don't have access to, but I'm definitely ready to go back, get to some familiar surroundings, spend some time with my wife, probably going to get mauled by the dogs because I will be flying in early. So it's the last time I got in, it was, after dark, and they were mostly asleep. And like, oh, Daddy's home, yay, okay, we're going back to bed. Talk to you in the morning. My boys are definitely have missed me because the weather in Austin has finally started to cool off, so I'm able to take them for walks in the morning. And that is Koloth's thing. He will wake up, and as soon as he sees me starting to put on pants, grabbing shoes, he starts dancing. Kimpak, he likes his walks, but he's not as serious as Martok is. And Martok is a very serious walker. He will stop and smell everything, and I swear when he pees, it's like he's on a message board or something. He's leaving a message, oh yeah, and this, and this, and this. And it's hilarious because on more than one occasion, he's run dry. I see him, smell something, hike his leg, and there's a little, and, it's like, I can only imagine that's, like a curse word or something, him punctuating that, whatever that particular conversation was. I don't know. One of the things that, people have done, probably going back to antiquity is anthropomorphizing. Oh, I totally screwed that word up. Basically giving human traits to non-human people. Disney is the master of this, going back to Mickey Mouse. But, dogs, yeah, they're animals, but they're smart. They figure things out very quickly, and they know how the game is played. They understand words like walks, cookies, hungry, and, quite a few others as well. But, yeah. Anthropomorphification. I think that's the word. It's one of those words that I can rattle off in my brain without issues, and then as soon as it gets to my lips, I suddenly learn how to speak. I can't remember how to speak English. My tongue just seems to fatten up in my mouth, and that's it. Well, with the weather being as cool as it is, I haven't seen nearly quite the wildlife. And I haven't seen any snakes or alligators, but really I only saw the one alligator the first trip I was here. So I don't know if, the city periodically, traps them or what, but it's fun to see the wildlife. I'm walking up and down here. I see squirrels, and occasionally I see a bird of prey or some other birds. A couple of times this week I saw several flocks of birds flying in that V formation heading towards whatever their destination is, fall is here. And geez, it is November. Yeah, 2023 is quickly winding down. And in general, 2023 hasn't been a great year. It hasn't been a horrible year. I try to be the optimist, try to keep an open mind, but with 2024, I just don't know. There's so much going on in the world, and I try to keep abreast of it so that I know what's going on in case somebody asks me. I also know that my opinion, really, few people in this world actually give a damn, what Khealos thinks about insert your topic. But, I post on Twitter and, try to interact, and, we'll see. I mean, my crystal ball typically is cracked to begin with, so I can't really predict the future, and even when I think it was working, I'm often wrong. But that's part of the human condition, looking towards the future. You look at a lot of older movies at the prediction, or games for that matter, at the predictions of the future, and more often than not, depending upon how far back you go, they are completely wrong. Take 2001: A Space Odyssey. Arthur C. Clarke and Stanley Kubrick, because they worked jointly on that project, the assumption was the United States would have a permanent station in orbit, and while yes, we have the ISS, it was more of like a commercial type deal. There's a permanent station on the moon as well, and that space station in orbit was kind of like the layover place, depending upon where the moon was, rotation wise, so on and so forth. And yeah, that hasn't happened. There's always going to be talk about putting some sort of permanent settlement on the moon, but until something actually worth going back to the moon for is discovered, I don't see it happening. We went to the moon in '69 because Kennedy said, we're going to go to the moon before the end of the decade. And despite, his assassination, Johnson continued with that, and lo and behold, we did put men on the moon for the first time. And really, I think we went back a couple of times after that, and it was 1969. It is now 2023. I do think that space is going to be the next the next frontier, mostly because I'm not going to say resources are running out or anything, but that's what drives economies, resources. And we don't know what's on those asteroids. The working theory, and I'm not sure if it's actually been proven, was that the moon is actually a piece of the Earth, billions of years ago when the Earth was forming, a massive meteorite or something struck, this fledgling planet, cracked it, and a chunk of the Earth broke off, flew into orbit, and through gravitational forces and, thousands, millions of years, formed into our moon. So, it's probably going to have a lot of the same stuff that, is on Earth. We just, really don't know because I don't even know if we've scratched the surface of what's on the moon, let alone, know any more than that. But, I've been a science fiction fan for a very long time. Most of my life, if not, literally almost all of my life. And I'm generally curious to see, where things go. I know Elon Musk is pushing to go to Mars. My thought is, if you're going to Mars to escape the damage done to this planet, why can't you spend a lot of that money and actually fix some of the damage that's done to this planet? It is probably going to be a hell of a lot easier and cheaper to work on the planet than try and terraform Mars. And there's still no guarantee that you're going to have a viable colony on Mars. Again, we just don't know. There's the novel and the movie The Martian, which from my understanding is pretty accurate. But the simple fact of the matter is, there's no atmosphere on Mars, or it's so thin, there's nothing there. It doesn't have the atmosphere that Earth does that protects us from the majority of the radiation from the sun. The other thing is, since Mars is so far away, communication is going to be problematic just due to the time lag. Not to mention, it's going to take months, probably years, to get a spaceship from Earth to Mars. And that in of itself is problematic because while we have figured out a lot of stuff with cryonics, I don't think we've gotten to the point of like the hypersleep chambers of Alien. And we can't freeze people because cells with liquid have this tendency to burst when they're frozen. So there are tons of problems getting from here to Mars. I do think we should work on that technology, but at the same time, we really should probably use the moon as a test bed. Now, I know China is currently working on their own space program, and depending upon how that goes, there could be a new space race, not between the Soviet Union / Russia and the United States, but the United States and China. Especially if they find, I forget what it is, some isotope of hydrogen, I believe. And if they, whoever starts, claiming sections of the moon, we could certainly start seeing a new buildup as, resources, are trying to get them. But, we'll see. 2001, maybe got that wrong. They might just be, a few decades off. But, again, after we got to the moon, everyone cheered, hurrah. And then, you had, you still had Vietnam. I mean, the U.S. was still in the Cold War with the Soviet Union. You had the revolution in Iran, where it turned from, what it was into the theocratic state that it is now, and just the moon just wasn't as exciting as it was. Yep, we got there, been there, done that. What now? And it's kind of sad, because that excitement, I wasn't around for that excitement for getting men on the moon. I would like to experience something like that in my lifetime, the first settlement on the moon, whatever it is. I mean, I know that they've set up numerous base camps all around the world, simulate that isolation, because that's the big thing. Something goes wrong, you have a finite amount of time, and it's not like you can just leave. I mean, the moon is a hell of a lot closer than Mars, so it would probably be a bit easier to, get replacement parts or something like that, whatever is going on to the moon. But the other problem is, with so many satellites in orbit, that is, you have to have certain windows to actually break orbit without potentially taking out a satellite or, all the debris in orbit. So that is something that has to be dealt with as well. But we'll see. I don't foresee any major space news in 2024. We're probably looking at the U.S. election. We still got, the stuff going on in Ukraine, and then, the Middle East, that drama currently going on. We'll see how long that goes on. Unfortunately, I have no influence on any of it, so while I think about it, while I'll have my opinions, I have enough stuff on my plate for stuff that I can deal with. And that's what I'm trying to concentrate on. Something that I've been working on with myself is to not worry about anything out of my direct control. Otherwise, I'm going to take up drinking as a full-time job and, check out. Winter, whatever happens, the world is going to continue to spin. People will continue to do people things, and life will go on. And my life is fixing to continue as I get closer to the hotel and sit back, figure out if I'm going to go get a little bite to eat, or if I'm going to just, grab a cup of coffee and go to the airport. Still got to put gas in the car, but that's easy peasy. There's a gas station, right across, another building, so I can fill up, and the airport isn't that far away either. So, but yeah, back to Austin. No idea. I've got ideas of where I'd like to go, what I want to do. We'll see if I can make it happen. If you've made it this far in the video, go ahead and like and subscribe, ring the bell, all of the things that you're asked to do. And if you do like this video, go ahead and leave me a comment below. What are some of your predictions for 2024? What are some of the things that you're looking forward to? You don't have to be too personal. You can keep it, open as much as you want. And yeah, we're looking at winding down the year here pretty quick. The holiday season is with us, is upon us. We still got Thanksgiving to go through. Yeah, we celebrate Thanksgiving, but not in the traditional sense of the pilgrims coming across and blah blah blah. Because if you're even remotely interested in U.S. history, that tale doesn't necessarily end well for a lot of people. But I do treat Thanksgiving as a period of thanks. Namely, I like to give thanks for the things that I do have. At least for right now, I'm relatively healthy. I'm in a good job, a decent job. I've got a beautiful and loving wife. I've got dogs. I've got a house. I've got friends. I'm able to game on a regular basis. I have a bit of freedom. And not to toot my own horn, I do try to look at things from a wider angle, and not to put anyone down. I do not want that impression. I have things to complain about, but not as bad as a lot of other people. And I take my victories however I can, no matter how small they are, sometimes with a grain of salt. But I try to celebrate the good things in my life and not dwell on the bad ones. Talking with my wife, I have a ton of projects that I got to get back to. Apparently it's been raining in Austin, and if you didn't know, plants like rain. They like water, and with it not being ungodly hot, I get to look forward to mowing the lawn, trimming the bushes, cleaning out things that have popped up that we don't want to deal with. So yeah, the downsides to owning a home, but I wouldn't trade it, because I hear the horror stories about rents going up, or leases being changed, and people being forced to move every year. And I won't say that I did that in my youth, but that was mostly because my father was in the Air Force, and we did move around a bit when he got a new station. As a kid, that didn't bug me that much, because I was a kid and that was the nature of life. But I'm pretty well established in Austin. I really don't want to pack up and move. They had offered me a package to move to Orlando. However, the amount of money that they were going to offer me was not what I would have needed to actually make the trip. And I'm glad I didn't take it, because morning, I do like Austin. We've got a good friend base there. We might not have the widest net of friends, but we do have friends, and we've actually reconnected with a few, so we'll see. But heading back to the hotel, gonna see what the day brings. Probably get this up when I get home to Austin. We'll see if anyone actually watches it. But again, like and subscribe. I appreciate you watching. I know 34 subscribers right now. Very small. Looking to grow that, especially as I get more content that isn't just me talking about stuff. But enjoy your Saturday. Make as much out of this day as you can. And I will catch you on the next video. Peace.